Chapter 4 Festival.
A merchant Earl had never seen before stood at a stall, surrounded by a flock of young women. Earl heard him shout, "Just one drop of this elixir, and the man of your desire will fall hopelessly in love with you." In an oily, theatrical voice, he added, "Only 20 royal silver coins per flask." Earl pushed his way through the circle of giggling girls and cut in. "Only one drop? Then it must be incredibly potent." "Yes, indeed," the merchant said, scanning the crowd for the voice. When his eyes finally settled on Earl, he straightened his posture. "Certified mermaid tears, sir. Acquired by a trusted associate of mine from a coastal town in Corsa. And you are, good sir?" "My name is Earl, guild member." He pulled his brass compass from his coat and held it up just long enough for the merchant to get a clear look. The merchant's smile flattened. Around them, the girls quieted, their excitement dimming as they glanced between the stranger and Earl. Earl folded his arms. Interesting, because the guild's archives list exactly 0 verified cases of mermaids shedding tears. Or existing. A few of the girls snickered. The merchant cleared his throat. Well, you know how records can be, spotty in remote regions." "Right," Earl said dryly. "Then you won't mind if I take this to the guild for examination? We always appreciate new discoveries. You would be well compensated." The merchant's hand shot out to block him. It won't be necessary." Earl raised an eyebrow. "No? I thought they were genuine." Silence tightened the little circle around them. The merchant forced a strained smile. A slight exaggeration in the marketing, perhaps. Harmless, a trade secret." "So they're fake," Earl said plainly. The man deflated. "A harmless perfume mixture, sir. Nothing more." Earl stepped back, giving the girls room to leave if they wanted. "Then maybe advertise it honestly. Or pack up before the guards do it for you." The merchant was already sweeping the bottles off his table. "Sir, I was just trying to make a living," he pleaded. "I understand," Earl said. "That's why I didn't call the guards straight away." The merchant muttered a string of curses under his breath as Earl turned away from the stall, heading deeper into the square in search of an open table. Somewhere he could sit down, grab a plate of something warm from the cooking pits, and maybe a beer or two to dull the day's chaos. As Earl walked through the square, he spotted Jane and Jasper helping their mother prepare plates of roasted ox meat. He waved and smiled as he approached. "Looks like you two are busy." Jasper shot him a look, sweat dripping down his forehead, cheeks flushed, breath short. With a small edge of annoyance, he replied, "You think? We've been running around all day. Mom's worse than the slaveholders in Great Saal." Jane, despite looking just as exhausted, gave Earl a warm smile. "Do you want something to eat?" "I would love a plate," Earl said, returning the smile. "Where were you all day?" Jasper cut in. "Didn't you say you'd help us here if Master Leicester gave you the day off?" "Commander Barrow ordered me to follow him to a mysterious shipwreck," Earl said, lowering his voice. "I'll tell you more when we have more." "Jasper!" Mrs. Whitmore yelled from behind the stall. "Stop talking to everyone! People are hungry!" Jane leaned closer to Earl as she handed him a plate. "Mom promised we'd be off in 2 hours. You can tell us everything then." With a plate of grilled ox and steaming vegetables in hand, Earl found a free table near the edge of the square. He sank onto the bench, the noise of the festival washing over him in a warm, distant blur. For the first time since waking after the storm, he finally had a moment of stillness.
He cut off a generous piece of the ox and took a bite. The meat was incredible, crisped at the edges, still tender and juicy inside. A burst of unfamiliar flavor spread across his tongue. He paused. A new spice. Mrs. Whitmore must have used one of the rare seasonings the kingdom had begun importing recently. Something sharp, earthy, with a warm heat that lingered pleasantly on his tongue. Just as he realized he hadn't brought anything to drink, a cool shadow fell across the table. "Here you go, Earl," Jane said, setting a freshly drawn beer beside his plate. Before he could even get out a thank you, she wrapped her arms briefly around his shoulders from behind, then hurried back toward the food line to help her mother. Earl watched her slip back into the crowd, for a heartbeat longer than he meant to. When she disappeared behind a cluster of festival-goers, he exhaled and leaned back, letting the noise of the midsummer celebrations wash over him. Laughter, music, the smell of roasted meat and spiced cider, lanterns swaying overhead like drifting stars. He took a slow, deep breath and let himself sink into the moment. For a brief flicker in time, Earl forgot the shipwreck, forgot the unconscious girl with skin like his, forgot the storm that had nearly taken his life. Right now, there was only the warmth in his chest, the crisp bite of perfectly seasoned ox, the cool beer at his elbow, and the living pulse of the festival air around him. Earl felt an arm hook around his shoulders. "Finally free!" Jasper groaned. "That old witch had us working our bones off." "You'd better not be talking about our beloved mother," Jane said as she pulled out a chair and sat beside Earl. Earl looked up just as Jasper appeared, holding 2 beers. Jasper handed him one and shot his sister a glare. "You can defend her all you want, Jane, but she is exploiting us." Earl was already a little tipsy. The new beer in front of him didn't help. Still, he lifted it as the twins settled into their seats. "Cheers," Earl said. "Glad you two survived." "Cheers," they echoed, raising their mugs. Jasper wasted no time. He leaned in, lowering his voice like he was telling a ghost story. "So, tell us about this mysterious shipwreck of yours." Earl leaned in and lowered his voice. "I heard the commander telling his soldiers about a royal falcon he received. Something about the Golden Federation collapsing into anarchy. Something about the Crown Prince being killed and..." He swallowed hard. "And something about them killing every guild member they could find." "Guild members?" Jane whispered. "Why would they kill guild members?" "I don't know," Earl said, anger tightening his jaw. "But I want to know." "How horrible," Jane murmured, shaking her head. Jasper glanced at his sister, then back at Earl. "Well, guild members aren't universally loved. Even here in the kingdom, some people resent the guild." He lifted his mug and shrugged. "You hear a lot when you work at the tavern." "I work at the tavern too, you know," Jane said, rolling her eyes at her brother. She turned back to Earl. "Did Commander Barrow say who killed the guild members?" "No, he didn't. He just said the whole region has been unstable for a while." Earl took a breath, refocusing. "Right after that, we got word of the shipwreck." "Oh, right, the shipwreck," Jasper said, laughing aloud. "The ship looked strange to us," Earl continued, his excitement building again. "It didn't seem built for the open ocean, but that's clearly where it came from. There's nothing north of us except open sea. At least, nothing we know of." He leaned forward. "And there was this girl who washed ashore. She was, well, she looked like me. Same skin color, similar features." "Girl?" Jane repeated. "Some girl who looks like you survived the shipwreck?" Her tone shifted, subtle but unmistakable. "Yes," Earl said, nodding quickly. "Isn't that great?" "Great," Jane echoed. Her tone had shifted more than subtly now. "Yes, maybe I can finally learn where I come from," Earl said, unable to hide his hope. Maybe she knows something. "Your home is in Bray," Jasper said firmly. Earl nodded, but his voice softened. "Yes, Bray is my home. But I'm still curious where my parents came from, who they were, what kind of people they were." "I guess," Jasper said, finishing his beer with a shrug. "Were you able to find out more about this girl?" Jane asked, her tone a little too casual. "No, she was unconscious when we found her," Earl said. "We brought her up to the keep to rest." "So she'll stay with you guys? In the keep?" Jane pressed, leaning in. Yes, I think so. She'll be in the hospital wing with Mrs. Lockwood," Earl replied, stumbling slightly over his words. Jane didn't blink. "And did you find any other survivors? Like men?" she continued, interrogation mode fully engaged. "No, only women and children," Earl answered truthfully. Jane scoffed and crossed her arms. "How convenient." "All right," Jasper muttered, rolling his eyes at both of them as he stood up. "Time for a second round." As the night wore on, the three of them drifted deeper into the midsummer festivities. They laughed, drank, and teased one another, young adults pretending for a few precious hours that life would always stay this simple. Music echoed through the square, torches flickered in the warm breeze, and for a brief moment, Earl felt as if nothing dark or strange had touched his day at all. But beneath the joy, a quiet weight lingered. None of them said it aloud, yet all three seemed to sense it. The unspoken truth that days like this might not last forever. Still, they held on to the night as long as they could. By the time they finally made it home, it was late. The festival was winding down, lanterns burning low, and the last scattered laughter fading into the crooked streets of Bray. Earl barely remembered the walk to his room. His head was warm with drink, his legs heavy from the long night, and the aches from yesterday's injuries still dragging at his body. By the time he reached his bed, he could feel every bruise, every sore muscle, from the storm, from the wreck, from the hours spent riding. The moment the soft, lingering warmth of the mattress met his weight, he didn't even bother pulling off his boots. Sleep swallowed him instantly. "Earl, wake up! Wake up, boy!" Master Leicester's voice cracked through the darkness like a whip. Earl jolted, only to find the master gripping his shoulders, shaking him hard enough to rattle his skull. "Wake up, Earl. Get dressed. We're going to Central City." "What?" Earl blinked, still half buried in sleep. He sat up too fast, instantly regretting it. My head. Gods." His mouth felt like sand. "What time is it? And why are you waking me up again?" "Who told you to get drunk?" Leicester snapped. "I said get ready. We leave in half an hour. We're escorting the mysterious castaway directly to the king, per direct order from the Baron. And afterward, I'm taking you to the guild headquarters on the Island of Men." Earl stared at him, eyes unfocused. We're going to Central City?" he half asked, half coughed. Leicester threw his hands up. "How many times must I repeat myself, boy? Get your composure back, get dressed, and meet me at the stables in half an hour." And just like that, he swept out of the room with the cold precision of a man who had already moved on to the next task, leaving Earl blinking in the quiet he left behind. Earl sat frozen on the edge of his bed, hair sticking in every direction, head pounding, and heart suddenly racing. Central City, the king, the castaway girl, the Island of Men. He swallowed hard. He was awake now. He glanced out the window. It was still dark. Judging by the moon's position, the sun wouldn't rise for another 2 hours. He must have slept only 4 hours at most, but the lack of rest didn't dampen his excitement one bit. He had gone on week-long excursions before, but never outside the Northern Territory. This journey, though, this one could take months. He was going to see Central City. The thought alone sent a thrill rising through him. Unsure what he needed for a journey of such length, he simply threw everything he could think of into his backpack. Clothes, notebooks, tools, spare charcoal, a knife, whatever he could reach. Earl arrived at the stables 10 minutes early. Commander Barrow and a soldier were already waiting when he stepped inside. "Good morning, Earl," Barrow said, crossing his arms. "You're up earlier than I expected, considering how much ale you stuffed into yourself last night." "Good morning, Commander Barrow," Earl replied. "Will you be joining us on the journey?" Barrow let out a short, rough laugh. "Me? No, lad. My duties lie here in Bray. Someone's got to keep this place from falling apart." He jerked his thumb toward the soldier beside him. "Philip here'll be escorting you lot." Earl looked at the soldier, really looked, and his mouth fell open. It was the same guard who had rudely called him boy at the barracks yesterday. "Why him?" Earl asked, unable to hide the plea in his voice. Philip shifted uncomfortably, stepping from one foot to the other, clearly hoping no one would bring that up. Barrow snorted. "Because he's the best of his class, that's why. Fastest musket reloader I've ever seen, and sharp as a nail when he keeps his mouth shut. And he's the only one here on Bray." He jabbed a thumb at Philip without looking at him. "Don't worry, he'll do his job. Ain't that right, lad?" Philip straightened immediately. "Yes, Commander." Before Earl could object further, he heard footsteps approaching from behind. All 3 men turned as Master Leicester appeared, followed by 3 guards struggling to control the chained castaway. She twisted and shoved against them, forcing the men to brace their weight to avoid hurting her. Even with a bit gag in her mouth, she still growled and hissed through it, unyielding, fierce, very much awake. Barrow let out a rough laugh. "You've got yourself some hard-to-keep cargo there, Master." Earl stepped closer. "How are we going to make sure she stays with us throughout the journey?" Philip rose, picked up his musket, and walked toward her. He stopped directly in front of the girl, meeting her eyes with an unblinking stare. Then he jabbed the stock of the musket into her ribs, not hard enough to break anything, but sharp enough to make his point. "If you flee," he said quietly, "I'll catch you, and you won't like what happens after." The girl's eyes narrowed, bright and burning, but she stopped struggling. "You see? Just a little discipline and she behaves," Philip proclaimed with a dirty grin. Earl and Master Leicester exchanged a glance. "We don't think she even speaks our language," Leicester said carefully. "And, quite frankly, none of the ones I know." "The language I spoke to her is spoken all over the world," Philip replied, lifting his chin as if he'd said something clever. "That's enough now, Philip," Barrow cut in, his voice low and sharp. "Why don't you help Grandmaster Leicester sit that brat up and tie her on your horse?" Philip flinched ever so slightly, Barrow's reminder of Leicester's rank landing squarely. He had clearly forgotten, for a moment, that he was speaking to a man equivalent to a colonel. "No," Leicester said, raising a hand. "Tie her to my horse. I weigh the least, and it's better for the horses that way." They tied the girl to Master Leicester's horse. Once everyone was mounted, Barrow looked at Philip. "Philip, I expect a falcon from you the moment you reach River Cross. Behave, and keep the guild's men safe." "Yes, sir. You won't be disappointed," Philip replied. "Commander Barrow," Earl called before they rode out of sight and hearing. "Can you leave a message for Jane and Jasper? Tell them I couldn't say goodbye, but I'll send falcons whenever I get the chance." "I will, Earl. Don't worry," Barrow said, trying to comfort him. "They'll understand." Earl left with a faint smile. As Earl rode through the city gates once more, he thought of the twins, Mrs. Whitmore, Commander Barrow, and all the other people he had known all his life. He wasn't sure when he would see them again. Even though the kingdom had made substantial advancements in infrastructure, travel still demanded time. What once took months, sometimes years, could now be done in weeks. It was the same horseback riding as centuries ago, but the roads were now secure, maintained, and patrolled. That was not true of the far northern corners of the kingdom, nor of Shartwood Forest, the vast woodland that cut Bray off from the rest of the realm, and the reason the town felt so secluded. Shartwood was a dark, sprawling forest where the kingdom's order struggled to take hold, its roads few and its patrols thin, allowing outlaw bands to linger in the spaces the king had not yet fully reached. It was the second largest forest in the kingdom, surpassed only by the king's forest, yet far more remote and untamed.